And blessed to be a part of your day, a little rocky day the past couple of days for the stock market. Everybody's a little scared. Thankfully, we have Krista Huff joining us, our great friend from Colorado, who will tell us to remain calm all is well. Krista, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Well, I can remember a few months ago you said that there might be some corrections happening, and the fear of missing out market might peak, if you will. And I guess we're wondering if we should remain calm all as well.
I am going on a shopping spree today. I am so excited. I've been saving money for this since last summer, and 40% of my portfolio is in cash now. And after today, it won't be, because I'm going to be buying a lot of stocks today.
Well, your reaction to the reaction.
I don't even pay attention to the reaction. I mean, yeah, the market fell, right? I was so busy yesterday dealing with my sick dad that I barely noticed. And when I finally came up for air and looked at the market, I'm like, oh great, it's finally here. I mean, I sort of thought it wouldn't happen till March, but if it's now, sure, let's get this over with. We were so overdue for a correction, and we can't expect the market to continue to climb over the medium term unless we have the correction. So here it is. Let's just do it.
Well, what do you believe that this is the beginning of an official correction, if you will?
Well, this is the official correction pretty much, because, I did not expect it to happen this quickly, but, you just take what happens and you shift gears. And it's all happened within about a week and a half. And the Dow is down about 9.8% from its recent high to its low yesterday. And I was expecting, I threw the number out there, but I was expecting a 10% correction, and they quoted me last week on Market Watch, and I was like, oh well, I guess it better come in around 10%, or I'll look like an idiot. But fortunately, I don't know. I guess my crystal ball was working pretty well.
Well, you're giving us a lot of credibility here today. It's fascinating to me that the psychology behind the stock market, where you have people that are really fearful of all this. But, I mean, look, the stock market, as you've told us for years, has been on an incredible run.
Back in about, I guess it was 2016, and I was telling everyone, look, the market's probably going to go up 20% in 2017, and I told people why, and then sure enough, the S&P went up about 19.5%. And the Dow went up even more, which is a little surprising when the Dow outperforms the S&P, because those stocks are in theory less risky. But different markets do take turns having good years. Look at Bitcoin. But the important point is, no matter how good the investment is, it cannot go straight up forever. It has to pause and rest. And so what we're seeing now is the pause and rest on the stock market. So the real question to the investor is there a good reason for me to buy? And my answer is yes. Today, based on the current market, there is a good reason to buy, because stocks in general go up when corporate profits go up. They track each other. And corporate profits are surging across industries in a way I have never seen in the 30 years that I have been investing in stocks. It is like, I have a list in front of me right now of 18 stocks that I would buy in a heartbeat this morning, and I'm sitting here trying to narrow it down to the few that I'm going to buy or add to. And there's so many reasons that corporate America is thriving right now, and we're seeing it with all the bonuses that the employees are getting, and the tax breaks, and the deregulation, and the growing global economy, and the rising price of oil. All of this contributes to people doing well, economies doing well, nations doing well, and that's why stocks are doing well. And it's not going to stop tomorrow just because the market had a hiccup.
Krista Huff joining us here. Krista, if people want to get a hold of you, what can they do?
They can, so I write a stock market newsletter that they can find at CabotWealth.com, and it's called Cabot Undervalued Stocks Advisor. And they can find me on LinkedIn, and they can send me messages on Twitter. So I'm really easy to find. It's Krista Huff, Huff, like Frank.
Indeed. Let's talk a little bit more about just the historic rise of the stock market. I mean, where the exceptional has become the normal. I mean, going up by 1,000 points in some things, and then just amazing to me with it, in a week or two? I haven't seen that happen in my lifetime.
You know, it's sort of amazing that the Dow is down just about 10% since January 26th. That was the peak. So I'm looking at about 6 trading days it fell 10%. So that's like, whoa, that's a big deal. But it was overdue and it was expected, and we were all sitting around tapping our fingers on the table like, come on, let's get on with this thing. So it's not exactly the same as like when the market fell with the price of oil. That took a while. That was about 5 months from the beginning of the stock market fall to the recovery. And then, of course, the Brexit fall. Everyone was sort of expecting that, but it happened it took place and recovered in about a week. So each market fall is different because it depends on what triggers it and whether it's really due or not. We get a 20% growth here in the stock market approximately 3 times every decade. And the reason I expected it last year was because through 2016, we were more than halfway through the decade, and it had only happened once so far this decade. So I'm like, okay, it's overdue, and it's about to happen, and sure enough, it did. So a lot of this is just analyzing statistics, analyzing people's psychology, understanding, are corporations having a good year or not, and why, based on the economy. So it sounds like voodoo if it's not your occupation, but if it is your occupation, you can just slice and dice it, and it all does become very clear.
Now, once again, to show you that I know nothing about the market, and we thank goodness that we have you on here. What about the folks with the mutual funds and everything else that we hear so much about? Are they impacted by this?
They'll watch their values go down for a few days or a few weeks or a few months, depending on which market correction we're going through. I get the feeling this one's going to be quick, and then I think the stock market will just be in a trading range for a while. So if you're looking at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, you'll probably see the Dow trade between like 24,500 and 26,500, probably for several months before any market average tries to go higher than it was in January. But there's nothing unusual about sideways trading. There are years when all we have is sideways trading, like back in 2015, for example. So if I were a mutual fund investor and I had some cash and I was wondering whether to invest, this is the classic perfect time to invest. Like if you are a lady and you like to buy shoes, you wait for the annual sale at Nordstrom's. If you are an investor and you like to buy stocks, you buy during market corrections. So this is the perfect time for longer-term investors to buy.
Krista Huff joining us here at KIDO Talk Radio. So, Krista, when we take a look at the overall economy, let's get back to just the impact the Trump tax cuts have had on business. Historic.
It's been wonderful. Oh, and I read this awesome quote yesterday, and I'm going to try and get it while I'm talking to you. I was reading this economics book. Oh, here it is. And I don't think this guy was necessarily going to be promoting Trump. Oh, gosh, where is this? Oh, I can't find it.
I hate it when that
sorry.
happens, yeah.
I'm so sorry. Trump is just helping the economy so much because he is focused on doing so. It was his goal to make America great again. And 90% of anything we accomplish has to do with, are we focused on it? Did we say this is what we're going to do? Once you identify what you want to do, it's not actually that hard to accomplish it. And he said, let's make America great again. How are we going to do this? First, we're going to get rid of some of these ridiculous regulations. Second, income taxes are strangling people in corporate America. Let's lower those taxes. And he just sort of looked at it like you and I would. I've been saying for years, can we please have a businessman in the White House? And because business people know that you need to focus on your goals, especially financial goals, and business people say, how do we make this better, smarter, more efficient? How do we make the product work better with less downside? And so we have a businessman in the White House, and this is the result. And I have been waiting for this for years. It's like the happiest I've ever been regarding like politics and the economy, and I feel like a kid at Christmas time.
Certainly better than TPP.
Oh, my gosh, that horrible, horrible trade agreement. As a matter of fact, I sent a message to Rand Paul's chief of staff yesterday. He happens to be my Facebook friend, although he's not like my bro or anything. But I sent him a private message, and I said, will you please make sure Donald Trump understands that the TPP gave away U.S. sovereignty? Because as you know, nobody in the news ever talked about that. They always talked about, like, you know, some little aspect of trade, or they were very busy calling Donald Trump a protectionist, but nobody talked about the sovereignty giveaway. And that's why we shouldn't do the TPP. So I read the other day that Trump is considering it now, but making it better. Well, yeah, you know, the only way to make this thing better is to scrap it and start all over again. But importantly, no global commissions, okay? We want Congress to be in charge of America, not a global commission.
Right. And again, we see that once we give away the sovereignty, we give away control, and Katie barred the door.
Yeah, but he's smart, but don't worry, I'll keep trying to send messages through my connections. I mean, you know, Jeff Sessions is not my bro either, but I've spoken to him in the past, and I'll send messages to anybody until I find a message that sticks. And I will make sure Trump knows, look, we can't do this TPP, and this is what the globalists were really shooting for, and you know, they're going to stab you in the back in a heartbeat, so watch out for it. But he's a smart guy. People will tell him.
You know, your thoughts on Jeff Sessions. I mean, you've spoken with him before. He seems to be taking a beating now.
Maybe he is. I don't follow it super closely because I'm really focused on the stock market, and so I have to put blinders on to other issues that I may have focused on in the past. But I will tell you, when I met Jeff Sessions, I was shocked at how wonderful that man was. Yeah. Smart, funny, kind. He had that twinkle in his eye and that smile on his face like you would expect from Santa Claus. Just an incredibly endearing, engaging, intelligent man. And so I immediately completely trusted that man. And, you know, I've been in politics for a while. That's not the kind of phrase that rolls out of my mouth. But I love that man.
Well, I would agree with you on that, and a lot of people are smacking him around. I had a chance to cover him many years ago, and I wanted your take on him, and your take is exactly my take as well. It's
isn't he great? Wouldn't you love to have him at Thanksgiving?
maybe July 4th, you know, because his favorite word is patriot, you know, patriot. But
yeah. I spoke to him about the TPP. I told him that I was working really hard on it, and did he have any advice for me on it, something specific I should do or focus on or whatnot? And he didn't know me from Adam, and he gave me private time at a public event. I was very impressed.
Well, we're always impressed with you, Christoph. One more time, if people would like to hook up with you on LinkedIn or
LinkedIn, Twitter. All you got to do is spell my name right, and you can find me. I am all over Google, okay? So it's Krista, Crista, Huff, Huff, like Frank.
God bless you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Have an excellent day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Krista Huff with the latest on the market. We'll take your calls next, 580-5436. 580-KIDO is at the end of the world as we know it, and it seems kind of crazy to me that the market has had such a historic run that all of a sudden you have a minor correction. I understand 10% is a big correction, but think of all the gains that people have made in the last 2 years or the year since the president's been elected, right? Or kind of like Patriots fans, were we spoiled? We'll talk about it next. That's up next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
And disturbing story of a local retired priest charged with 12 counts of sexual exploitation of a child, as well as charges for possession of marijuana and ecstasy.
72-year-old Father Thomas Fauché is well known in the Boise's Catholic community from his decades at St. Mary's Church in Boise's North End on State Street. At a preliminary hearing late this afternoon, attended by more than a dozen of the retired priest's supporters, Prosecutor Cassandra Slavin said that the investigators zeroed in on the priest after receiving a tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that his email address had been used to send 2 child pornography.
And there we have it. We'll get more of that in a minute. So Father Fauché arraigned in a child porn case. I know this is very troubling to talk about, but we would not be doing a service at KIDO Talk Radio if we did not talk about this story and the dangers of child pornography and child abuse. And the idea of a blight on the Roman Catholic Church, a church that I have been a lifetime member of, and we unfortunately see this again and again and again, and we hope and we pray that the good people that are in any ministry, in any religious ministry, would out these people. Now, again, people are innocent till proven guilty, but at 72 years old, and you hear the evidence from our friends at Channel 7, disappointing, unacceptable, damaging, horrific. And the idea that this was going on, you think to yourself, well, this person has done so much good in the community, and yet I'm sure the folks at St. Mary's are hurting. And then you have people that will use this once again to attack a religious institution, all religious institutions. I've never really understood the idea of when you are at the highest levels of power, and for Catholics, there is nothing higher locally than the priest, that you have this utmost sense of responsibility. You go back to Jimmy Swaggart or James Baker or Bill Clinton and the politicians. You're so blessed with the influence and the charisma, and to do such good works and to throw it all away. Now, we hear that Father Fauché is cooperating with authorities, but again, troubling. We as a society have to have zero tolerance for these type of issues. Let's continue on with the story here.
Pornography images to another person.
Slavin said when police came to his house with a search warrant, they found an...
Apparently our computer doesn't want us to do this story. However, we'll continue to make sure that's unbuffered, and then we'll go with it. But again, you're looking at marijuana here. You're looking at these images. And again, as a non-Catholic, you're thinking to yourself, well, why is this such a big deal? It is when you see the hierarchy of the church, and this is a person that people confess their sins to, that they use as a marriage counselor, that they use as God's example on earth. And you don't have to watch the movie Spotlight to know that this has been a alarming issue, particularly in the Catholic Church, for quite some time. More on this in a minute. Traffic and weather together.
And exploited children that his email address had been used to send 2 child pornography images to another person.
Slavin said when police came to his house with a search warrant, they found an online chat open on his computer in which the defendant allegedly wrote about his desire to molest children, writing, quote, as well as physically harm a child. Defense attorney Mark Manweiler stressed that Fauché is not accused of actually molesting any children. A preliminary hearing in the case is set for February 15th. His bond was set at $250,000. For more information about what was said during the arraignment, visit this story at KT.
And there we have it. Father Fauché arraigned. And thank you to our friends at Channel 7. What can you say? Obviously, there are many allegations in this case, and people are innocent until proven guilty, but I believe there are a lot of things in our society that there should be zero tolerance for. And, what's his defense attorney going to do? I mean, he really can't do much in this case, saying that, Father Fauché did not want to, physically harm people, and it was thoughts and such and images. There's something on this program that we can talk about that not many other shows can anymore, maybe Glenn Beck to a degree, and that's our faith in God. And, going over the Super Bowl, when you have the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles thank his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for directing him, Doug Peterson, it's tough to go against. And for us, our faith in God has to be there. And thank goodness that we have an organization like the Center for Missing and Exploited Children that found this out. There are many people in the Treasure Valley, police officers, that pose as little kids to make sure that this doesn't happen. But obviously, how long has this been going on? And the consequence of this, whether you're a Christian, a Catholic, a religious person, that undermines the trust, which is Satan's work. He wants to undermine our trust in religious institutions and religious people. And we see this, unfortunately, with this incident. Obviously, if convicted, Fauché will have to spend the rest of his life, I believe, behind bars. And at 72, What does that mean? You just can't have that. Now, if this man were set up or something of that nature, but it doesn't look like that's the case here. And I don't understand how you can be, with all due respect, not to judge, but to judge, how you can be a person of God and be doing these things, allegedly. And, of course, I suppose that is the great crux that we live in all the time, right? The idea of being tempted. But obviously there are some issues, and I know the Catholic Church has done their very best to try and stop these things. As a matter of fact, of course, now we have allegations against the Pope that when he was a cardinal in South America, that somebody wrote him letters saying they were being molested and nothing happened. You know, it's not an easy thing to do, whether it's Jerry Sandusky or this case at Boise. This has to stop. Easier said than done, but through prayer, through holding our own selves accountable, this cannot be tolerated in our society today. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. And Kevin Miller in the morning here, taking your calls, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Going back to this story from the Statesman, hundreds of child porn images, LSD, ecstasy found in the home of a Boise priest, according to the prosecutors. Remember, when you have the prosecutor, you only get one side of the equation. But here's the story from Ruth Brown. Hundreds of images of child pornography and drugs, including marijuana, ecstasy, and LSD, were found in the home of a retired Boise priest, according to a prosecutor. Longtime Catholic Reverend Thomas Fauché, 72, was brought into the court in a wheelchair Monday evening for his arraignment on 14 different counts. Most of the crimes involve Idaho's laws against child pornography. He's charged with 10 counts of sexual exploitation of a child, 2 counts of distributing sexually exploitive material involving children. His last 2 charges are both for drug possession, all of which these charges, except one of the drug counts, are felonies. That's right. He was arrested Friday from a warrant from the Idaho Attorney General's office. Ada County Prosecutor Cassandra Slavin described email conversations where Fauché reportedly traded images and talked about his sexual interest in children. Fauché said he has a very sophisticated knowledge of exchanging and viewing child pornography. And in certain chats investigators viewed, she said, he expressed a desire to molest children. When such chat screen was opened on his computer when police arrived during the search warrant. A disturbing, sad story here in the Treasure Valley. Your thoughts on this at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And to the people at St. Mary's Parish, we're very sensitive to this. This is a troubling and dark day for you, as for all people of faith. And it comes down to the courage of our convictions, the courage of our faith, when we take a look at people that have fallen, Jim Baker, Jimmy Swaggart, Father Fauché, and others. Why in the world would they do this when they've been gifted with such trust from God Almighty? And you could say that with politicians as well. It is amazing to me that this happens. Obviously, this can't be tolerated, and people will use this to go after the church, to go after Christians, to go after the faith, but they don't represent the good priests that are out there. And let me just say this, and this is not a Catholic show, but I don't back down from my faith. The priesthood has taken a beating over the years over a troubling case of people not following God's path. And there's a lot of responsibility given to those priests. And, when you have people, whether it was the popes in the past, whether it was bishops or cardinals or whoever else, that ignored this, or the folks at Penn State, that's unacceptable. Anybody that does this should not be allowed out in our society today, right? That's the key. There has to be a zero tolerance for this. And, thankfully, see something, say something. Cindy in Caldwell, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Cindy.
Well, good morning, Kevin. I was listening initially. It kind of went sideways on me on that lovely woman speaking about economics and the stock market. And yes, we do have in a fallen world a Catholic priest who I don't know what people don't understand. If you are not a Christian or not taught, be where you stand lest you fall. We all have this sin-sick nature in us. That's why we needed a redeemer and redemption. And even with an unregenerated or regenerated spirit, you are a walking target for Satan. Give place to the devil, start doing drugs, doing what other. So yes, it's a tragedy, and I'm sure the world will love to have this titillating story, but does it surprise me? You know, your friend Sean Hannity said yesterday, and he was talking about the FBI and the DOJ, and he said something that I really kind of like. Nobody's after and not thinking that they're not honorable FBI agents, but I'm constantly aware on a daily basis of my need for repentance and things in my own thought life. So because we have a Comey and a Mueller and this person and that person, prideful people, I don't think God, I can't find that in the Bible, rates the amount of sin. It's tragic. And, of course, those will point fingers at this priest, which I already knew about at the beginning of this week for a particular reason. But in any event, I would like to say thank you, and thank you for your brilliance with having Lars Larson on the station. You know, last night, and I'm picking up on your first story, because this is like, I wish Dr. Ahlquist, the builder, was on today, because I found it astounding to realize yesterday that, you know, he was talking, Lars, about the American First policy with an oil person yesterday. And, you know, my nurse came to do this IV. I mean, astounding to me. In fallen nation states like the Dominican Republic, where we get IV bags from, and Puerto Rico, the grid's not up, so that the manufacturers that have gone out of this country, Baxter and Stryker and Johnson & Johnson, there's no IV bags. He's hanging this med when the bottle is bubbling all over the place, and I'm going, okay, Chris, what's going on here? So we went to a website to see, you know, locally, you know what, forget about yogurt. I'm hoping that we can get, you know, building back in this, manufacturers back in America. I am sorry that Puerto Rico is so challenged, because you want to go socialism, you want to have corruption, you want to have graft, being economically so challenged that only the two. I mean, this is your local hospitals. They're trying to get normal saline. I mean, seriously, the things that we can go talk about, we need some people in Idaho to be building and having these manufacturers come back here to get good jobs for people that may not want to go to your progressive colleges but can get into the factories like my family came from, working in factories to get IV bags. This is ridiculous. They have to go get them now from Canada and Ireland. I mean, it is crazy. So, yes, we can talk about the tragedies, the proclivities of having a fallen human nature, that you think you're going to stand if you get involved. It's tragic what happened to this man. Tragic. And the world will go that way. It's a very, you know, it's like the Me Too people. This will be the story of the day. When I'm trying to figure out, you know, what the heck they're doing in Washington with the socialistic views, all programs are equal. They can't even get our military up to par here. I'm getting an IV yesterday.
Well, that's the scary part. Let me go back to the idea of God and faith. And you're right. You know, as Sean Hannity talked about, not all FBI agents are bad.
Right.
However, you know, we go back to this has been happening with the priests for a while, God knows how long, and there needs to be a way of eliminating these folks. And if you're doing these things, then you need to be in jail. You don't need to be preaching before the flock.
Well, who didn't say that? I'm talking about whether it's a priest, a mechanic. If you are that naive, I say someone with the intelligence to go read the screw tape letters. I'm sure you have people that, you know, have the ability to read a book. You are a walking target out there. And if you think that whatever you are doing, whether you're a prideful Mr. Comey, the pride, I mean, Lucifer fell because of pride, not because maybe pedophilia or whatever else you go, you think you are not going to get addicted to these things. It doesn't just start with a little bit of thing with porn or soft porn or any of these other things, and probably the drugs don't help. They will push you right over in every single case. You go work in the prisons. You go work on drug units. You know, the man's had mobility issues in a wheelchair. I don't know what he was taking for whatever, but you think you're going to start that stuff, and that's for all the teenagers out there fooling around with the computer. I got to go over to the library. It's got locks on this, locks on that, because who's watching the porn site over here? You really think, whether it's a priest or your 18-year-old son that can't have the same problem. Although this will be very interesting chit-chat for the day, and that goes for Anglican Protestant.
But on the other hand, Cindy, they're going to use this against the church. Cindy, thank you for the call. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. It really comes down to a matter of faith. And obviously, this person needs to be prosecuted. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We're going to switch gears. We're going to talk a little bit about healthy living with my friend Norma from St. Luke's coming up. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio, our great friend Norma Hayner joining us from St. Luke's. She is a health coach, a health advisor. And Norma, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. It's my pleasure to be here.
You know, what is wellness? We hear so much about these buzz terms, fitness, wellness. But for those of us, going to work here this morning at KIDO Talk Radio, what is wellness?
So wellness, it can be defined in lots of different ways, but a great way to define wellness is to live your optimal, healthy life that you want to live. So it's composed of more than just like exercise or diet, nutrition. It makes up different aspects. It's composed of your emotions, how you deal with your emotions, relationships, good relationships, making the most of your relationships, working on the intellectual part of your life. So do you have a job that's stimulating to you, that you love? Do you make effort to work towards that? And environment, do you have an environment that is conducive to the way that you want to live? And it also encompasses your spiritual aspect of yourself, and also social, your friends, and then back again to your nutrition, exercise, rest. So it's all encompassing of several different areas.
Sometimes those simple things can seem so complicated.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, and that's why sometimes it's great when, people can use a health coach to help partner with that. And health coaching is kind of a new role in the healthcare field. So it's where we partner with the client to work to help translate their own knowledge and recommendations of what's most important in their health and what makes a difference in their life.
Well, and you and I have had many discussions on this, and the idea of, just trying to drum up not only the goals, both concrete and abstract, but coming up with a game plan to get there.
Absolutely, Kevin. And I think, the most important place to start when you're trying to determine, what's best for yourself. But first of all, you need to ask yourself the question, what's most important to you in your health right now? And how would, making a change in that area make a change in your life? And it kind of starts really, you have to do a deep dive into what your personal vision is for how do you see your optimal health? How do you want to look? How do you want to feel? What kind of things do you want to be doing? What kind of life do you want to have?
Well, that's the idea. I think when we talk to people on the radio, or Norma, what I've learned from you is, that's the big question. What type of life do you want to have, and coming up with steps to get there? Absolutely.
And then, the other most, important part after that is, why do you want that? What's important to you about that? What doors are going to open up for you? What matters the most in this, and then to just take and set some. Once you do that, then it's easier to define an area maybe that you want to work on. So, like back again to what's the most important thing that's happening to you right now. And if you don't change where you are now, what's your life going to look like? So, some big questions to ask yourself. And then to set some goals around those.
Well, I was going to say, Norma, what are the solutions for people listening right now to KIDO Talk Radio that feel that they're in a rut, and they try and then they fail, and it's kind of like trying to push that boulder up the hill, and then it goes right back down.
Absolutely, and we're the owners of our own health, and we're in the driver's seat. And if you're in the driver's seat, you have to have a good roadmap to get to, the destination that you want to get to. And this means knowing what you want, first of all, and, knowing what it would like to be there. And then once you know that, to take some small action steps around that. And, you've all heard of SMART goals before. So just pick an area. I talked about the whole well-being, how it's not just your physical part, but your spiritual, mental, emotional, social part. So pick an area that you think would make the biggest difference right now. And then set some small specific goals around those. So start out like picking a 3-month goal. Maybe it's around relationships, like what would you like your relationships to look like 3 months from now? And then just doing we've heard of the SMART goal, so make it specific. So something, that you can measure and an action. So have it action oriented and be something realistic that you can attain, not something so far out there. And know when you want to get there. So how long it's going to take you to get there. So those are the most important things. Tiny steps are what really matter in being successful.
Norma, as you and I have talked about it, what's the most important thing you can say to someone right now that, like myself, they struggle with the idea of putting themselves before others? It's so easy for all of us, it seems, and I'm speaking for myself here, that you have to do this, you have to do that, and sometimes we put ourselves last, and last of the last is not only our self, but our own health.
Yeah, and that happens so much, Kevin, doesn't it, where you put everyone else ahead of yourself. But then what toll does that take on yourself and your ability to be able to give back to the people that you want? So it's sort of like, the pilot, when you're on an airplane and they say you need to put your oxygen mask on first, because if you don't, you're not going to be any good for anyone else.
Norma, if you could you speak directly to people right now? I know you just did, but I think your message would be more effective than me saying something right now about people that might be intimidated to take that first step because they haven't been successful in the past.
So I think that, again, I think the first most important thing is think to yourself what matters the most to you right now. And how would making a change in this area change your life? And if you were to take one tiny step, it only has to be a tiny step in this area to get started, what would that step be? So write that very first step down, and then also write down what support do you need to remind yourself to put this new step into your life. Maybe you need to write it on the mirror in your bathroom, or maybe you need to, put it on your phone and have it go off, or have a support system, somebody at work remind you. Maybe it's as tiny as, walking a half a block during your break. Just remind yourself until those tiny steps actually become habits, because tiny steps become habits, and then you can build on that and form another habit. And then also how you would like to follow up on your progress. How are you going to reward yourself, honor yourself for these successes that you've taken?
Well, and one thing that I can share, Norma, is, going to the gym can be kind of intimidating for a lot of folks, and maybe you start at home, maybe you go somewhere else, but it's a very different lifestyle in the gym today, and that's what we talk about with Fit One and others. It's not people condemning people, it's people inspiring people, no matter what your fitness level.
Absolutely. So, I kind of think the gym can be really intimidating for a lot of people in the past, and you're absolutely right. I think it's been a big shift in that, we all see that it's so important to take these small steps to better health, and everyone's there, I think, just to root the other person on, and they're happy to see them, no matter what size, shape, or condition that they're in at the present time. They're happy to see that they're working towards improvement on their health.
Norma, anything else you'd like to share with us here on KIDO Talk Radio?
I'd just like to thank you so much, Kevin, for having me on, and just knowing, it's how important it is, just have a starting point, and kind of know where you want to be, and one thing, small steps lead to success. So, when you make tiny steps towards success, the success just keeps building on success.
Norma, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. So nice to talk to you.